The new season of Doctor Who, shooting out with second season, has kicked off with the Robots Revolution. Here are my initial thoughts ahead of one, maybe two more full-length reviews later in the week. We'll see. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. I thought it was good fun. You know, I was expecting to enjoy it going in. I was expecting to enjoy it more than Space Babies last year. It's weird because there are similarities between Space Babies and this story. You know, certain things like the twist at the end and the way things are set up, like last year in Space Babies with the push the button thing, this time with things like the 9-word thing, the atom thing, you know, touching the 2 pieces of the star certificate, things like the little cleaner robot, the polish robots. You know, where those things come back later on, and you have a twist where the villain isn't quite what they seem to be to begin with. You know, we had that with the Bogeyman last year, something a bit different this time with the AI or OWL generator, whatever. But I preferred this, I think, for a number of reasons. One of the most obvious being that it was just like a complete, clean, fresh start, you know, compared to last year where Space Babies was the opening story of season 1, but it was also the second episode, or third, I guess, for Shooting Out with Doctor. It was just a bit more diluted. I'm not sure I like that thing of having the Christmas special be the first episode and then, you know, the series afterwards. I much prefer this, where you're just hitting the ground running and having that clean, fresh break and fresh starts. I thought it was, yeah, a really, really good, fun, good premise. You know, harking back to kind of old Russell T Davies openers, things like Partners in Crime, Smith and Jones, you know, Rose to some extent as well, I suppose, where you have that domestic setting and very quickly, you know, something happens. I loved the whole thing, you know, with the robots kidnapping Belinda, how, yeah, all that just kind of comes into her life and there's this roller coaster that starts and doesn't let up, you know, she's thrown into this world of aliens and the Doctor and everything. Mrs. Flood, you know, there as the neighbour, again, fantastic. We'd seen that bit as a preview clip beforehand, but still, it's brilliant. I love her, I love that character. I can't wait to see what happens with her. Apparently she is going to be cropping up every single week in some form and different guises, a bit like Susan Twist last year. So yeah, loved that, and the fourth wall break as well. You ain't seen me. Brilliance. Belinda, I thought Varela Sethu, obviously, you know, we've seen her in the show before as Mandy Flynn in Boom, something which the story addressed. I mean, first things first, actually, I quite liked the way they addressed that in the end. I was a bit hesitant to begin with. I was thinking, okay, how's this going to go? Because it wasn't planned from the start that she would be returning as this other character. You know, when she shot Boom, that was not the case. It kind of came up afterwards. So this is kind of a retroactive thing where, yeah, they're going back and making it look like it was the plan all along to have, you know, Destiny bringing her and the Doctor together. But actually, you know, in execution, I thought that worked quite nicely. I think it is a good idea to play into that stuff to some extent. I mean, we'll see how it goes, but to some extent, because even though it is an accident or a coincidence or whatever in terms of the real world production side of things, it does just make things a bit more exciting and kind of, yeah, you know, compared to if we were just having like a brand new character or a brand new actor come in for this season as the companion, it just adds that other layer of mystery and excitement to the ongoing story of Doctor Who, which is nice. And I think Varela Sethu, obviously we've seen it before, I think, yeah, here she was just brilliant. Yeah, really, really great. I think the choice to go with a companion who has a bit more friction with the Doctor, who's a bit more of an unwilling traveller, to put things mildly, harking back to things like Tegan in the 5th Doctor's era, even Ian and Barbara in the 1st Doctor's era as well, the very first companions that the show ever had, the Doctor ever had. Yeah, I think that's great. There's always a danger, I think, with those sort of companions that, you know, if they're not enjoying being with the Doctor, then viewers will be turned off and think, well, there's no point watching this show because, you know, they're not enjoying it, so why should I? But I think, yeah, clearly what's happening here, or beginning to happen, or is going to happen, is that she's kind of come along for the ride, not by choice, but she's going to start enjoying actually being a companion and travelling with the Doctor pretty quickly, and so that's going to be nice to see as well. But certainly for the moment, yeah, the friction there, the way she stands up to the Doctor, the way she's a bit older than Ruby, to compare her again to what we got last year, it just makes for a more interesting dynamic, I think. And the logical place, I guess, to take Ncuti's Doctor next, and now that Ruby has gone, his first companion, here is his second. Ncuti as well, brilliant. Yeah, I thought he was great in this. You know, I think you can really tell now that he's been playing the role for a bit, and there's that extra layer of confidence there, and like, no, I know what I'm doing now. My Doctor has kind of settled. So that was really nice to see, and more outfits to add to his wardrobe, of course. The wardrobe continues to expand. I think, yeah, the dynamic between him and Belinda was really nice, and I guess the signs of mysteries there as well, like, what's going on there, what's bringing them together, what's stopping them from returning to the 24th of May. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that all develops. Like, I'm sure there was a line saying something about how he'd spoken to a guy in the future or something who had sent him in Belinda's direction, so I wonder what's going on there. I wonder how much of the plot as well, like, has a grander sort of explanation, like things like the star certificates and the time fracture or whatever, which just made me think of time fracture, the immersive thing. But yeah, like, is that stuff just contained to this story, or will it have bigger explanations and reasonings behind it as the series develops? Is someone pulling the strings, or is that stuff just limited to what was going on here? It wasn't entirely clear, perhaps intentionally so. So yeah, I guess we'll see with that. I think the plot of this was solid, as well. Nothing revolutionary, I suppose. But yeah, no, it was solid. It was good for an opener, I think. Nothing too complicated, aside from the timey-wimey stuff that was a little bit like, okay, so the robots have gone back in time or whatever. They came from this period, they've ended up back in this one. It's a bit of a bootstrap thing. But that aside, yeah, easy to follow. Some nice bits of setup, like I say, with the cleaning robot, the star certificate, things like the 9-word pattern thing as well, with the dialogue and the speech, that makes you kind of look back on scenes and go, oh, okay, so that was being set up there, and that's now how, the plot is resolved at the end. I thought that was clever and nice. It's nice to have little things like that to kind of make the viewer feel like they are also piecing it together themselves. Yeah, so that was nice. And the twist, with Alan Budd being the AI or the OWL generator, I'd kind of put 2 and 2 together from seeing a few bits online about this and seeing him in the Disney trailer, I think it was, in the prosthetics. But yeah, still, I thought it worked for this. Nothing too complicated, nothing just kind of be too taxing for the audience or whatever. It's just, okay, yes, of course it's him because he was there at the start as well. And yeah, less goofy than Space Babies, certainly, and things like the Bogeyman and the babies themselves. Quite scary as well, like the makeup on him. I can imagine if I was a kid, kind of watching that, like 6 or 7 or whatever, being quite freaked out. It was kind of probably one of the scariest things in this era so far, like the freakiest, with the voice as well, and his glittering skin. It was like, ooh, yeah, this isn't nice. And the whole backstory behind him, with him essentially being this controlling boyfriend who's become king of his own world and wants everybody to obey him and wants his version of the world to be gospel, with Belinda kind of marrying him and all that kind of stuff. Again, I'd heard hints and clues about that in reviews and things beforehand. I think actually in execution it wasn't as goofy or as clunky as it might have been. Like things like the reference to incels, Planet of the Incels, I thought, yeah, okay, fair enough. That's timely, that's relevant, it's true. There were the odd kind of bits that were maybe a little bit clunky, like coercive control becomes complete control or whatever it was. Maybe a little bit on the nose, but honestly, I think, yeah, not as on the nose as it might have been or I was necessarily expecting it to be. So, yeah, that was nice. And just the way the plot came together at the end, it was very satisfying, with all that setup beforehand. It was like, okay, yes, I see what's going on here. It's not too much of a contrivance. Maybe there were some contrivances, some minor ones at the end, where it's like, okay, so why does the touching the certificates thing destroy Alan but not Belinda? Maybe there were explanations for that I'm just going to go back and rewatch and find out. But yeah, and there were some nice shots and stuff there as well, creatively, with the whole sequence with the blue and red lights of the Doctor and Belinda and Alan at different ages. And was there a shot of the Doctor holding Belinda as a baby? What was that all about? Was that just a throwaway thing, or was there more to that? Again, not entirely sure. I need to go back and analyse that a bit more. But yes, overall, the Robot Revolution, the first episode of Doctor Who Season 2, a very solid opener. I enjoyed this a lot. Very, very fun. Probably for me the best episode since Rogue, I think, which, isn't to say that the finale last year and Christmas special were bad or they didn't have good things in them. There was definitely stuff in those stories that I enjoyed. But overall, I think this one just hangs together a little bit better and is a more solid story and just feels that bit more fresh and different and like it's doing its own thing rather than relying on the past or retreading old ground, retreading old storylines or story beats and things like that. But yes, what did you think of the Robots Revolution? Be sure to let me know all of your thoughts and theories in the comments section below. Subscribe to the channel as well for more Season 2 coverage over the coming days and weeks, including the odd full-length review and roundtable reviews as well. That is the plan, so yeah, fingers crossed. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and goodbye for now.